The lights of Trading Station Valorum 9 flickered in their usual pattern, casting long shadows across the metal floors. Corporal Jiwoo walked his patrol route through the commercial district, his boots making soft sounds against the deck. He had been doing this job for 8 months now, and he knew every corner of this place. The station was huge, almost like a small city floating in space. Thousands of aliens from hundreds of different species came here to buy and sell goods from across the galaxy. Jiwoo liked the quiet of the early shift. Most of the serious trading happened later in the day. Right now, merchants were just setting up their stalls and checking their inventory. He nodded to a few familiar faces as he passed. A Velen trader named Suk waved one of her 4 arms at him. A Thexian pilot called Dae Sung made a clicking sound that meant hello in his language. Jiwoo had learned to recognize the basic greetings of about 20 different species since coming here. The human stopped at a viewing port and looked out at the stars. Earth was very far from here, almost on the other side of known space. Humans were still new to the galactic community. They had only made contact with alien life 30 years ago. Most species still did not know much about them. Some thought humans were weak because they did not have thick armor or natural weapons. Others thought humans were strange because of their unusual behaviors. Jiwoo did not mind either opinion. He just did his job and tried to stay out of trouble. A loud noise came from the exotic goods sector. Jiwoo's hand moved to his weapon automatically, but he did not draw it. Probably just merchants arguing over prices. That happened a lot. He changed direction and headed toward the sound anyway. It was his job to check on disturbances, even small ones. As he got closer, Jiwoo saw a crowd forming. That was unusual. Aliens usually minded their own business on the station. Whatever was happening must be interesting or important. He pushed through the crowd politely, using his size to move between the larger species. Humans were medium-sized compared to most galactic species, but they were solid and strong in their own way. When Jiwoo reached the front of the crowd, he stopped breathing for a moment. In the center of the open space, a group of Vrelian merchants had set up a large cage. Inside the cage was a Carthax cub. Even though it was young, the creature was already as big as a full-grown human. Its fur was dark gray with black stripes, and its claws were as long as Jiwoo's fingers. The cub was muzzled and chained, and it was making sounds that made Jiwoo's chest hurt to hear. Everyone in the galaxy knew about the Carthax. They were apex predators, one of the most dangerous species in known space. An adult Carthax could tear through starship hull plating with its bare claws. Their bite force was stronger than industrial machines. They were also intelligent, honorable, and very protective of their families. Their warrior clans controlled entire systems. Nobody messed with the Carthax unless they had a death wish. So why were Vrelian merchants selling a Carthax cub on a public trading station? Jiwoo watched as the lead merchant, a tall Vrelian with yellow skin markings, addressed the crowd. His translator device made his words understandable to everyone present. This fine specimen was recovered from a derelict vessel in unclaimed space. Salvage rights are properly documented. Bidding starts at 50,000 credits. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to own one of the galaxy's most magnificent predators. The crowd murmured, but nobody stepped forward to bid. They were not stupid. Buying a stolen Carthax cub was a good way to start a war. The merchant, whose name tag identified him as Grix, looked annoyed at the lack of interest. Jiwoo moved closer to the cage. The cub stopped thrashing when it saw him. Its large eyes, which should have been fierce and golden, looked scared and tired. There was dried blood on its fur from where the chains had rubbed its skin raw. The creature was injured and terrified, and nobody was doing anything about it. "Where are its parents?" Jiwoo asked loudly. Grix turned to look at him. The Vrelian's expression showed surprise that a mere security guard was questioning him. "The parent vessel was destroyed when it attacked our salvage operation. We acted in self-defense. The cub is legitimate salvage under Coalition law." Jiwoo's jaw tightened. He had read the Coalition salvage laws. There was a lot of gray area in them, but one thing was clear. You could not sell sentient juveniles who were separated from their parents through violent means. The problem was proving the violence was not defensive. "I need to see your weapons logs," Jiwoo said. Grix laughed. "You need to do your job and maintain order, human. This is legal commerce. Do not interfere." The crowd was watching now. Jiwoo could feel their eyes on him. Most species knew humans had a reputation for being protective of young, any young, even if they were not human. It was considered a weird evolutionary quirk. Humans had evolved on a dangerous world, and somewhere in their development they had learned that protecting children, all children, was important for survival. That instinct had never gone away, even after they reached the stars. Jiwoo tapped his communicator. Hyun, I need you in the exotic goods sector. Now. A minute later, the station administrator arrived. Hyun was a Velen, with purple skin and those 4 arms that his species was known for. He took one look at the situation and his eyes went wide. Oh no. Jiwoo, please tell me you are not thinking what I think you are thinking. That cub needs medical attention, Jiwoo said calmly. It's injured and stressed. Coalition Protection Statute 447B prohibits the sale of sentient juveniles in distress. Hyun pulled Jiwoo aside and lowered his voice. That statute has 17 exceptions and salvage rights is one of them. The Vrelian Merchant Guild has lawyers who know every loophole. If you challenge this, you will lose and you will lose your job. How long until the Carthax clans can get here? Jiwoo asked. Hyun checked his datapad. The nearest clan vessel is 3 systems away. Even at maximum speed, they cannot arrive for at least 3 days, maybe more. Jiwoo looked back at the cage. The cub had started making those sounds again. They were distress calls, the kind a young creature makes when it is calling for its parents. But its parents were not coming. They were dead, killed by the same people who had caged their child. That cub will not survive 3 days without proper care, Jiwoo said. Hyun put a hand on Jiwoo's shoulder. I know what you are feeling, but this is bigger than one cub. The Vrelian Guild has political power. If you interfere, I cannot protect you. You will be on your own. Jiwoo looked at Hyun, then back at the cage. The cub was looking at him again. In its eyes, Jiwoo saw something he recognized. Fear. Pain. A desperate hope that someone, anyone, would help. He thought about his own childhood on Earth. He thought about the people who had protected him when he needed it. He thought about why humans had joined the galactic community in the first place. To make things better, to help, to protect those who could not protect themselves. I understand, Jiwoo said to Hyun. Then he walked toward the cage. Grix was starting the bidding again. His guards, 12 Vrelian mercenaries with heavy weapons, stood in a circle around the cage. They looked professional and dangerous. Jiwoo was one person with a standard sidearm. The math was simple and brutal. Jiwoo put his hand on his weapon and faced Grix. I'm invoking Coalition Protection Statute 447B. That cub is under human protective custody until proper legal review can be conducted. The entire marketplace went silent. Every conversation stopped. Every transaction froze. 300 aliens of dozens of different species turned to watch a single human challenge a group of armed merchants. Grix stared at Jiwoo for a long moment. Then he started laughing. His guards joined in. But Jiwoo noticed something. The crowd was not laughing. They had all taken a step back. They knew something the Vrelians did not seem to understand. When a human said they were protecting a child, they meant it. And they did not stop no matter what stood in their way. Jiwoo did not move. He just stood there, hand on his weapon between the merchants and their prisoner, waiting. The laughter died away slowly. Grix's expression changed from amusement to anger. You are making a very stupid mistake, human, Grix said. Jiwoo looked him in the eye. Maybe, but it is my mistake to make. In the cage, the Carthax cub had gone quiet. It was watching Jiwoo with those big golden eyes, and for the first time since it had been captured, it looked like it had hope. Grix stopped laughing and stepped toward Jiwoo. The Vrelian was taller, his yellow skin markings seeming to glow brighter with anger. You have no authority here, human. This is a legal transaction. Station security has no jurisdiction over merchant guild business unless there is clear evidence of criminal activity. Jiwoo kept his voice calm. Your weapons logs will show whether you acted in self-defense or if you attacked first. I am requesting to review those logs now. I do not have to show you anything, Grix said. His guards spread out, forming a wider circle. Their weapons were not pointed at Jiwoo yet, but the threat was clear. You are a low-level security officer on a backwater station. I have connections that reach all the way to the Coalition Council. If you continue this interference, I will have you removed from this station and blacklisted from every security position in the galaxy. The crowd was growing. More aliens were arriving to see what the commotion was about. Jiwoo could hear them whispering in dozens of languages. Most of them sounded surprised that a human was challenging the Vrelians. A few sounded worried. One or two sounded impressed. Hyun pushed through the crowd again, this time with two other station security officers. They looked uncomfortable. "Jiwoo," Hyun said quietly, "I just received a message from Station Command. They are ordering you to stand down. The Vrelian Guild has filed an official complaint. If you do not walk away right now, you will be suspended." Jiwoo looked at his friend. Hyun had been good to him during his time on the station. The Velen administrator had helped him learn the complex social rules of a multi-species community. He had given Jiwoo advice about which aliens to avoid and which ones were trustworthy. Hyun was a good person and Jiwoo knew he was just trying to protect him. "I am sorry, Hyun," Jiwoo said, "but I cannot walk away." Hyun's forearms moved in a gesture of frustration. Why are you doing this? You do not even know this creature. It is not human. Its species would probably eat you if it was hungry enough. Why throw away your career for it?" Jiwoo turned to look at the cage. The cub was pressed against the bars now, watching him. It was so young, maybe the equivalent of a human 8-year-old, though it was hard to tell with alien species. Because it is a child. Because it is scared and hurt. Because someone should help it, and nobody else is stepping forward. One of the other security officers, a Thexian named Dae-sung, made a clicking sound. The human is right about the protection statute. If the cub is in medical distress, it should be examined by station medical staff before any sale is finalized. Hyun looked at Dae-sung in surprise. "Are you taking his side?" Dae-sung's insectoid face was hard to read, but his posture was firm. "I am following proper procedure. If there is doubt about the legality of a transaction, it should be investigated. That is our job." Grix was losing patience. "Enough of this nonsense. I have permits, documentation, and legal standing. This human is wasting everyone's time. Remove him or I will have my guards do it." Jiwoo took a step toward the cage. Every weapon in the area immediately pointed at him. He could see the targeting lasers painting red dots on his chest. 12 dots, 12 chances to die. His heart was pounding, but his hands were steady. Training took over. If he was going to do this, he had to commit completely. He reached the cage and knelt down. The Carthax cub pulled back at first, then slowly moved closer. Jiwoo could see the injury on its side more clearly now. It was infected. The chains had cut deep into its legs. Its breathing was shallow and fast. This creature needed medical help soon, or it would die regardless of who owned it. "Can you understand me?" Jiwoo asked softly in basic Carthax. He had learned some of the language during his deployment near their territory. It was not much, just simple phrases, but maybe it would help. The cub's ears perked up. It made a sound something between a growl and a whimper. Jiwoo recognized it from his language files. It meant hurt. "I know," Jiwoo said. "I am going to help you." "I promise," Grix shouted something in his own language. One of his guards moved forward and grabbed Jiwoo's shoulder, trying to pull him away from the cage. Jiwoo shrugged off the grip and stood up, turning to face the guard. He still had not drawn his weapon, but his body language made it clear he would not be moved easily. A new voice cut through the tension. "What exactly is happening here?" Everyone turned. A human woman in a freight hauler uniform was pushing through the crowd. She was tall and looked strong, with short black hair and sharp eyes. Her name tag said Captain Bora. Behind her were 4 more humans, her crew by the look of them. Grix pointed at Jiwoo. "This security officer is interfering with legal commerce. I have asked station administration to remove him, but they are being slow to respond." Bora looked at Jiwoo, then at the cage, then back at Grix. Her expression hardened. "That is a Carthax cub. A juvenile. Where are its parents?" "Dead," Grix said. "They attacked our salvage vessel. We defended ourselves. The cub is legal salvage, Bora repeated. She walked over to the cage and examined the cub. Her crew followed her. One of them, a young man who looked barely 20, made a sound of distress when he saw the injuries. "That cub is dying. Look at those wounds. They are infected. It needs medical treatment right now." "That is not your concern," Grix said. "The buyer will provide whatever care they see fit." Bora turned to face him. "The buyer? You mean whoever wants to buy an apex predator cub for illegal fighting rings or private collections? Because that is the only kind of buyer who would purchase a Carthax juvenile on the black market." Grix's expression became dangerous. "This is not the black market. This is a registered trading station. Everything I am doing is within coalition law. And I am losing patience with human interference. More humans were arriving now. Jiwoo saw Yun, an engineer who worked in the station's maintenance department, Dr. Suah from the medical bay, Minho, another security officer. They were not all coming together. They were just appearing from different parts of the station, drawn by news of what was happening. Within a few minutes, there were 15 humans in the marketplace. Then 17. Then 18. None of them said anything. They just positioned themselves around Jiwoo and the cage. Some of them were armed. Most were not. It did not seem to matter. They were forming a wall between the merchants and their captive. The crowd of alien observers had grown even larger. They were watching with fascination and some fear. Jiwoo could hear their whispered conversations. The humans were demonstrating their most famous characteristic. When one human stepped forward to protect something, others would follow. It was not a conscious decision or a planned response. It was just something they did. Yun was talking urgently into his communicator. Station security was probably scrambling to figure out how to handle this. Technically, the humans were not doing anything illegal. They were just standing there. But their presence was clearly disrupting the merchants' business, and their body language suggested they would not move peacefully. A message arrived on Jiwoo's communicator. He checked it quickly. It was from Commander Tae-hyun, a human liaison officer serving on a Carthax clan vessel. The message was short. Received distress call from Cub. Clans are responding. Pushing engines past safety limits. Current ETA 46 hours. Hold position 46 hours. The Cub had to survive for 46 more hours. Jiwoo looked at the juvenile. Its breathing was getting worse. Its eyes were starting to close. It did not have 46 hours. Maybe it did not even have 46 minutes. Dr. Suah moved to stand next to Jiwoo. She was a small woman, barely 1.5 meters tall, but her voice was firm. That cub needs immediate medical attention. Its life signs are critical. As the chief medical officer of this station, I am declaring a medical emergency. Grix laughed, but it sounded forced now. You have no authority over my property. It is not property, Suah said coldly. It is a sentient being in medical distress. Coalition health and safety regulations supersede commerce law. That is not an opinion. That is fact. The Vrelian merchant looked around at the growing number of humans. His guards were still armed and ready, but they were starting to look uncertain. The crowd of aliens was completely silent now. Everyone was waiting to see what would happen next. Grix made his decision. He pulled out a small device and pressed a button. Alarms started going off throughout the station. A message broadcast on all channels. Security alert. Hostile action in commercial district. Armed response authorized. Within seconds, more Vrelian guards arrived. Jiwoo counted them quickly. 20 new guards, all heavily armed, added to the 12 already present. That made 32 armed Vrelians against 18 humans, most of whom were not even trained for combat. The odds had just become impossible. Grix smiled. Last chance, humans. Walk away now or my guards will remove you by force. Station regulations allow for defense of merchant property. If you resist, they are authorized to use lethal force. Bora looked at Jiwoo. What do you want to do? Jiwoo looked at the cub. It was barely conscious now. He thought about the odds. He thought about his career. He thought about the fact that he might die in the next few minutes. Then he thought about why humans had come to the stars in the first place. Not to conquer. The marketplace was frozen in time. 300 aliens of every shape and size stood perfectly still, watching a scene that would be talked about across the galaxy for years to come. A single human holding a dying predator cub, surrounded by 17 more humans facing down 32 armed guards. The countdown continued. 8 seconds, 7 seconds. In the crowd, a Velen trader named Suk whispered to her companion, "The humans are not going to move. They never move when they protect young ones." Her companion, a crystalline being from a species Jiwoo did not recognize, made a sound like breaking glass. They will die. All of them, for a creature that is not even their species. That is what makes them humans, Suk replied quietly. 6 seconds. 5 seconds. The Carthax cub in Jiwoo's arms was barely breathing. Its body was hot with fever from the infected wounds. It made a weak sound and pressed closer against Jiwoo's chest. Dr. Suah moved closer, her medical scanner already in her hand. She was analyzing the cub's condition even as weapons were pointed at all of them. Severe infection, dehydration, and cardiac stress. she said quietly to Jiwoo. "If we do not get it to the medical bay in the next 10 minutes, it will go into shock. After that, I cannot save it. 4 seconds. 3 seconds." Jiwoo looked at the faces of the humans around him. Bora stood with her arms crossed, her expression showing no fear at all. Her crew members looked scared but determined. Yoon the engineer was shaking slightly but had not moved from his position. Minho had his hand on his weapon but had not drawn it. These people were willing to die because one person had decided to do the right thing, and they could not let him stand alone. That was humanity in a single moment. Irrational, beautiful, terrifying. 2 seconds. 1 second. Grix raised his hand to give the order to fire. His guards took aim. The crowd collectively held its breath. And then something impossible happened. One of the Vrelian guards lowered his weapon. Then another. Then a third. Within seconds, half of the guards had their rifles pointing at the ground instead of at the humans. Grix screamed at them in his own language. Jiwoo's translator picked up words like coward and traitor and worthless. But the guards did not raise their weapons again. One of them, a scarred veteran who looked like he had been in 1,000 fights, spoke in common language so everyone could understand. "I am a soldier, not a murderer. These humans are not attacking. They are protecting. There is no honor in killing them." Another guard nodded. "I have fought humans before in the border conflicts. I have seen what they do when they protect their young. They do not stop. They do not surrender. Even when dying, they keep fighting. If we fire on them now, some will die. Maybe all of them will die, but they will take many of us with them, and for what? For a merchant's profit?" Grix's face was dark with rage. "I pay you to follow orders, not to think. Raise your weapons." But the guards did not obey. More of them were lowering their rifles now. A professional soldier knew when they were facing an enemy that would fight to the last breath. The humans had not drawn weapons, had not made threats, had not done anything aggressive, but every single one of them had that look in their eyes, the look that said they would not yield. Not for anything. In the crowd, conversations erupted. Aliens were talking excitedly in dozens of languages. Some were transmitting the scene to others on different parts of the station. News feeds were probably picking it up. Within minutes, this confrontation would be broadcast across multiple systems. A Thexian pilot in the crowd suddenly shouted, "The Cub is calling." Everyone went quiet again. They could all hear it now. The Carthax Cub was making sounds, weak and desperate. It was a distress call, the kind young creatures made when they needed help from their parents. But its parents were dead. Instead, the Cub was being held by a human, surrounded by more humans, and that call was being broadcast on open frequencies. The message was clear to anyone listening. A human had answered a Carthax distress call, not with weapons or threats, but with protection, with shelter, with a promise that the Cub would not die alone and afraid. Somewhere in space, the Carthax clans were receiving that broadcast. They would hear their young one calling for help, and they would hear that humans had stepped forward when no one else would. Captain Bora pulled out her datapad and started typing. "I am making an offer," she announced loudly. "My ship is carrying rare earth minerals, the entire cargo hold. Market value is 3 times what you would get for that Cub on the black market. I will transfer the shipment to you right now if you walk away." Grix stared at her. "That is your entire year's income." "I know," Bora said. Yoon stepped forward. "I will add my savings. 50,000 credits. It is all I have, but you can have it." Minho pulled out his own datapad. 30,000 from me," Dr. Sua nodded. "I will give 60,000. One by one, the humans started offering everything they had. Their savings, their valuables, their possessions. Within minutes, the total compensation being offered exceeded 500,000 credits. They were bankrupting themselves to save a creature that was not even their species. The alien crowd was stunned into silence. This was not normal behavior. Most species valued their own survival and prosperity above all else. That was logical. That was rational. But humans were not acting logically. They were acting on something deeper, something that defied economic sense or survival instinct. Then something even more surprising happened. A Velen trader pushed through the crowd. It was Sook. She held up her datapad. "I will add 20,000 credits. I do not have much, but I will contribute." A Thexian merchant stood up from where he had been watching. 30,000 from me. More aliens started coming forward. Not all of them, but enough. They were offering credits, goods, services. Some were species that Jiwoo had never even seen before. They were not doing it because they cared about the Carthax cub specifically. They were doing it because they had just watched humans willing to sacrifice everything for a principle. And that kind of conviction was rare in the galaxy. Within 10 minutes, the compensation pool had grown to over 1 million credits. It was more money than Grix would have made selling the cub to a dozen different buyers. The Vrelian merchant looked around at the crowd, at his guards who refused to follow orders, at the humans who had not moved an inch, at the massive sum of money being offered to him. His business sense warred with his pride. Finally, business sense won. Fine, I accept the compensation. The cub is yours. He started working on his datapad, transferring legal ownership and releasing his salvage claim. The process took several minutes. Every second felt like an hour. The Carthax cub in Jiwoo's arms was getting weaker. Its breathing was shallow and irregular. Its body was going limp. Dr. Sua touched Jiwoo's arm. We need to move now. Right now. The legal transfer completed. Grix looked at the humans with hatred in his eyes. You have made a powerful enemy today. The Merchant Guild does not forget insults. Jiwoo did not respond. He just turned and started running toward the medical bay. Dr. Sua ran beside him, her scanner still tracking the cub's vital signs. The other humans formed a protective corridor, making sure no one interfered. The crowd parted like water, letting them through. Behind them, Grix was collecting his compensation and withdrawing his guards. Hyun was already filing reports and trying to control the damage. The station would be dealing with the political fallout from this incident for months. But right now, none of that mattered. Jiwoo's arms were burning from the cub's weight, but he did not slow down. The medical bay was 3 corridors away. Then 2, then 1. The doors slid open automatically. Dr. Sua's staff were already preparing an emergency station. They had been watching the feeds and knew what was coming. Jiwoo carefully placed the Carthax cub on the medical table. It opened its eyes and looked at him one more time. In that look, Jiwoo saw trust. This creature, this predator that should have viewed humans as prey, trusted him completely. It knew somehow that it was safe now. Dr. Sua and her team immediately began treatment. IVs were inserted. Antibiotics were administered. The infected wounds were cleaned and sealed. Monitoring equipment was attached. The medical bay filled with the sounds of machines keeping the young Carthax alive. Jiwoo stepped back to let the medical team work. His legs felt weak suddenly. The adrenaline was wearing off, and he realized how close they had all come to dying. His hands started shaking. Captain Bora put a hand on his shoulder. You did good, she said quietly. I just made everyone lose their savings, Jiwoo replied. Bora laughed softly. Money comes and goes, but we get to live with ourselves. That is worth more than any amount of credits. The other humans were filing into the medical bay now. None of them looked angry or resentful about the money they had lost. They looked relieved. They looked proud. They looked like people who had done something important. A message came through on Jiwoo's communicator. It was from Commander Taehyun again. Received confirmation of Cub's safety. Carthax War Chief Kral Vor sends his acknowledgement. They are still coming. New ETA 38 hours. He wants to thank those who protected his child. Jiwoo read the message to the others. There was a long silence. Then Yoon spoke up. The Carthax are coming here. To this station. Apparently, Jiwoo said. Time moved differently in the medical bay. Hours felt like days. Every beep of the monitors, every change in the Carthax cub's breathing, every small movement drew everyone's attention. Dr. Sua and her staff worked in shifts, never leaving the cub unattended for even a moment. The humans who had stood in that protective circle stayed nearby, taking turns resting but never all leaving at once. Jiwoo sat in his corner chair, watching. He had tried to sleep a few times but could not manage more than short moments of rest. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw those targeting lasers painting red dots on his chest. Every time he started to drift off, he heard the countdown in his head. 8 seconds. 7 seconds. 6 seconds. Captain Bora brought him food from the station cafeteria. You need to eat something. When the Carthax arrive, you will want to have your strength. Jiwoo took the food but only picked at it. Do you think they will be angry? We have their cub, but we are also the reason it was in danger in the first place. Humans were on this station when the merchants brought it here. We could have acted sooner. Bora sat down next to him. You cannot think like that. The Vrelians captured that cub days before they brought it to the station. Nothing we did or did not do caused that. What matters is what you did when you saw a child in danger. You stepped forward. That is all anyone can do. The cub stirred on the medical table. Its eyes opened briefly, golden and bright, before closing again. Dr. Suwa checked its vital signs and nodded with satisfaction. Healing well. The infection is responding to treatment. Its heart rate is stronger. I think it is going to make a full recovery. News from outside the medical bay filtered in through the communicators. The station was transforming. Human ships had been arriving steadily for the past day and a half. There were now over 200 humans on Valorum 9. They had come from mining operations, from cargo runs, from colony worlds, from research stations. They had come because they heard that one of their own had stood alone, and humans did not let their people stand alone. The station administrator Hyun visited several times. He looked tired and stressed. The Vrelian Merchant Guild has filed 17 different complaints. The Coalition Council is demanding a full investigation. I have been in meetings for 12 hours straight. But I have to say the political situation is strange. Strange how? Jiwoo asked. Many species are supporting what you did, Hyun said. Not all of them, but more than I expected. Some are calling you a hero. Others are saying humans are dangerous and unpredictable. But almost everyone agrees that the Vrelians were wrong. There's talk of changing the salvage laws to prevent this kind of situation in the future. Minho, who had been listening, spoke up. What about us? Are we in trouble? Hyun made a gesture with his forearms that indicated uncertainty. Technically, yes. You all violated several station regulations, but the public sentiment is so strongly in your favor that Station Command is hesitant to pursue disciplinary action. They are waiting to see how the Carthax respond. If the clans are satisfied with how the situation was handled, the charges will probably be dropped. And if the Carthax are not satisfied? Bora asked. Hyun did not answer. He did not need to. Everyone knew what the Carthax could do when they were angry. 30 hours passed. Then 32. Then 35. The cub was awake more often now. It still looked weak, but its eyes were alert. When Jiwoo approached the medical table, the cub would make a soft chirping sound. Dr. Suwa said it was a greeting, a sign of recognition and trust. It has bonded with you, she explained. Carthax cubs form strong attachments to whoever protects them during trauma. In its mind, you are part of its family now. Jiwoo did not know how to feel about that. He reached out and gently scratched behind the cub's ear. The young Carthax leaned into the touch, making a sound that was almost like a purr. Its claws, each as long as Jiwoo's finger, were retracted completely. It showed no aggression at all. At the 37-hour mark, alarms started going off throughout the station. A massive ship had just dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. Sensor readings identified it as a Carthax war vessel. One of the big ones. Station Command went to high alert. Defense systems powered up. Evacuation protocols were prepared. Everyone on the station knew that if the Carthax decided to attack, Valorum 9 would not survive. Carthax warships were designed to hunt the most dangerous prey in the galaxy. A civilian trading station would be destroyed in minutes. Jiwoo stood up from his chair. His legs felt stiff from sitting so long. They are here. The other humans gathered around. Nobody spoke. They all understood that the next few hours would determine whether they had saved a life or started a war. The Carthax vessel approached slowly. It was enormous, easily 5 times the size of the station's largest docking bay. Its hull was scarred from countless battles. Weapon ports lined its surface like the scales of some great beast. It was beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. A communication request came through. Station Command accepted it. A voice deep and rumbling like distant thunder spoke in perfect common language. This is War Chief Kralvor of the Starfang clan. We have come for our young one. We request permission to dock a single shuttle. Hyun, speaking for the station, replied carefully. Permission granted, War Chief. Your child is safe and receiving medical care. There was a long pause. Then Kralvor spoke again, and his voice carried an emotion that the translator had trouble interpreting. You have our gratitude. We are sending a delegation now. A small shuttle detached from the massive warship and approached the station. It docked at a bay not far from the medical center. Station security cleared the corridors. Most of the non-human population evacuated the area entirely. They did not want to be anywhere near angry Carthax warriors. But the humans did not leave. If anything, more of them arrived. They lined the corridors between the docking bay and the medical center. They were not armed, not threatening, just present. They wanted the Carthax to know that the humans who had protected their cub were still here, still standing watch. Jiwoo waited outside the medical bay entrance. Dr. Sua stood beside him, her medical scanner ready to provide information about the cub's condition. Captain Bora and several others formed a loose group behind them. Nobody had given orders or made plans. They just naturally fell into a protective formation. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed through the corridor. Then the Carthax came into view, and every human who saw them understood why this species was feared across the galaxy. War Chief Kralvor was massive. He stood nearly 3 meters tall, his body covered in dark fur marked with scars from countless battles. His claws, extended and visible, were like metal daggers. His eyes were golden and intense, and they locked onto Jiwoo the moment he came around the corner. Behind him walked 5 more Carthax warriors, each one just as impressive and dangerous. Also with them was Commander Tae-hyun, the human liaison officer. He looked small next to the Carthax, but he walked with confidence. When he saw Jiwoo, he gave a small nod of recognition. The Carthax delegation stopped about 10 meters away from the medical bay entrance. The corridor was wide, but the warriors seemed to fill it completely. Kralvor studied Jiwoo in silence for what felt like an eternity. His expression was unreadable. Then the war chief spoke. "You are the one who protected my child." It was not a question, but Jiwoo answered anyway. "Yes, war chief, along with these others." He gestured to the humans around him. Kralvor's gaze swept over the assembled humans. "You stood against armed enemies to shield a cub that was not of your species. You risked your lives. You gave your wealth. Why?" Jiwoo thought about how to answer that. How could he explain something that was so fundamental to being human, that they rarely even thought about it? Because it was a child in danger. Because no one else was helping. Because it was the right thing to do. One of the Carthax warriors made a sound, something between a growl and a laugh. Kralvor silenced him with a glance, then turned back to Jiwoo. "The right thing? Many species would say the right thing is to protect your own, and let others fend for themselves. Survival of the strongest. The way of the predator." "We are not predators," Jiwoo said quietly. "We are protectors." Kralvor's eyes widened slightly. It was the first real expression Jiwoo had seen on his face. The war chief looked at Commander Tae-hyun, who nodded. Some kind of understanding passed between them. "May I see my child?" Kralvor asked, and his voice had changed. It was softer now, less like thunder and more like a parent afraid of what they might find. Dr. Sua stepped forward. "The cub is stable and healing well. The infection has been treated. The wounds are closing. Full recovery is expected within 3 weeks. You may see it now, but please move slowly. It is still recovering and should not be stressed." Kralvor nodded and moved toward the medical bay entrance. Jiwoo and the others stepped aside to let him pass. The war chief had to duck to fit through the doorway. The other Carthax warriors waited in the corridor with the humans. Inside the medical bay, the cub was awake. When it saw its father, it made a sound that needed no translation. It was joy and relief and love all mixed together. Kralvor rushed to the medical table, all his warrior composure disappearing. Jiwoo stood in the medical bay looking at the kneeling war chief and tried to find words that would not sound foolish. "I do not need any debt, war chief. I just wanted to help your child. Any decent person would have done the same." Kralvor raised his head, his golden eyes meeting Jiwoo's. "That is where you are wrong, human. Most beings in this galaxy would not have done what you did. They would have looked away. They would have calculated the cost and decided it was too high. They would have waited for someone else to act. But you stepped forward when you were alone. You stood your ground when you were outnumbered. You protected my child as if it were your own." The war chief stood back up, his full height making him tower over everyone in the room. "The life debt is not something you can refuse. It is not a favor or a payment. It is recognition of a truth. You gave my child back its future. Without you, it would have died in fear and pain, far from home, surrounded by enemies. That is a debt that can never be repaid, but it will be honored for as long as the Starfang clan exists." Commander Tae-hyun spoke quietly to Jiwoo. "Accept it gracefully. This is their way." Jiwoo nodded and placed his own hand over his heart, mirroring the gesture. "Then I accept with honor, war chief." Kralvor's expression softened. "What is your name, human?" "Corporal Jiwoo." "Jiwoo. Kralvor repeated, practicing the pronunciation. Your name will be taught to our young ones. They will learn how a human stood alone against many to protect one of ours. They will learn that courage is not about strength or weapons, but about doing what is right when others will not. The cub on the medical table made a sound. Dr. Suwa checked its vital signs and smiled. It wants to be closer to both of you. If you are very gentle, you can hold it for a few minutes. Kralvor carefully lifted his child from the medical table. The cub was still weak, but it chirped happily and nuzzled against its father's chest. Then it reached one paw toward Jiwoo again. The war chief looked at Jiwoo and nodded. It wishes to show you something. A greeting in our way. Jiwoo stepped closer. The cub touched its forehead against his. A gesture that Commander Taehyun explained was how Carthax acknowledged family members. The young creature's fur was soft and warm. Its golden eyes looked into Jiwoo's with complete trust. You are pack now, Kralvor said. My child has claimed you. In our culture, this bond is sacred. You will always have a place in the Starfang clan if you wish it. One of the Carthax warriors who had been waiting in the corridor entered the medical bay. He carried several items wrapped in cloth. Kralvor gestured for him to approach. The warrior unwrapped the items carefully, revealing what looked like medallions made of dark metal. These are clan markers, Kralvor explained. They identify the bearer as protected by the Starfang clan. Any Carthax who sees this marker will know that you are under our shield. He handed one to Jiwoo, then looked at the other humans in the room. How many stood with you in the marketplace? 18, Jiwoo said. Then 18 markers will be given. Kralvor turned to his warrior. Bring 17 more. All who protected my child will bear our mark. The warrior bowed and left. Within minutes, he returned with more medallions. One by one, the humans were called forward. Captain Bora, Dr. Suwa, Yun, Minho. Each received a clan marker from the war chief himself. Each was told that they were now under the protection of the Starfang clan. When all the medallions had been distributed, Kralvor addressed the assembled humans. You have shown us what it means to protect the vulnerable. You have shown us that courage is not limited to one species or one culture. You have shown us that sometimes the greatest strength is in choosing to help, when you have nothing to gain and everything to lose. He paused, then continued. I came here prepared for war. When I heard my child was captured, I thought we would have to fight to reclaim it. I thought we would have to show the galaxy what happens when someone harms a Carthax cub. But instead I found that my child had already been saved. By humans. By people who had no obligation to help, no connection to us, no reason to risk themselves. Kralvor looked at each human in turn. The Starfang clan remembers. We will stand with humans as you stood with us. If you call, we will answer. If you are threatened, we will defend. This is our oath given freely, and it will not be broken. Commander Taehyun stepped forward. War Chief, may I speak? Of course, Commander. Taehyun turned to address the other humans. What happened here is already spreading across the galaxy. Every species with access to news feeds has seen the footage of the standoff. They have seen humans form a protective circle around a Carthax cub. They have seen you face down armed guards without flinching. They have seen you give up your savings to save a child that was not even your own. He smiled. Do you understand what you have done? You have changed how the galaxy sees humanity. Before this, we were seen as weak or naive. Our protective instincts were viewed as a strange quirk, maybe even a liability. But now they see what happens when humans decide something is worth protecting. They see that we do not back down. They see that we mean what we say. Captain Bora laughed softly. We just did not want a child to die scared and alone. We were not trying to make a political statement. That is exactly why it matters, Kralvor said. You did not act for glory or profit or political gain. You acted because it was right. That kind of integrity is rare. That kind of courage is precious. Dr. Suwa checked her medical scanner. The cub needs to rest now. Too much excitement is not good for its recovery. Kralvor nodded and gently placed his child back on the medical table. The cub made a sleepy sound and closed its eyes. Within seconds, it was breathing deeply, safe and comfortable. Its father watched it for a long moment, his expression showing the deep love parents have for their children, regardless of species. We will remain in the system until my child is fully recovered, Kralvor announced. Our medical staff will coordinate with Dr. Suwa. When it is safe to travel, we will take it home. He looked at Jiwoo. Will you visit? The Starfang clan would be honored to welcome you to our homeworld. Jiwoo was surprised by the invitation. Carthax territory was not easily accessed by outsiders. Very few non-Carthax had ever been invited to their home systems. I would be honored, War Chief. Over the following days, the situation on the station normalized. The Vrelian Merchant Guild eventually dropped their complaints after significant political pressure from multiple species. The Coalition Council opened an investigation into salvage law abuses. Station Command cleared all the humans of wrongdoing and even gave Jiwoo a commendation for his actions. But the real changes happened in smaller, quieter ways. The Carthax warriors stayed on the station while the cub recovered, and they spent time with the humans who had protected it. They shared meals, exchanged stories, learned about each other's cultures. Barriers that had existed for decades began to break down. Other species on the station noticed. If the Carthax, the fierce apex predators of the galaxy, could trust humans and call them family, maybe they were worth getting to know. Conversations started. Friendships formed. Trade agreements were negotiated. Humanity's position in the galactic community shifted in ways that would take years to fully understand. 3 weeks after the standoff, the Carthax cub was declared fully recovered. Dr. Sua gave final instructions for its care, though she admitted the Carthax medical staff probably knew more about their own physiology than she did. The cub was much stronger now, able to walk on its own, though it still stayed close to its father. On the day of departure, a ceremony was held in the main docking bay. The Carthax delegation assembled, along with the 18 humans who had stood in that protective circle. Station administrators attended, as did representatives from dozens of species. News crews from across the galaxy recorded everything. Kralvor gave a speech about honor, courage, and the bonds that could form between different species. He spoke about how his clan would remember what happened here, and how they would teach their children about the day humans proved that kindness was not weakness. Then the cub itself approached Jiwoo. It was still young, still small by Carthax standards, but it moved with growing confidence. It pressed its forehead against Jiwoo's one last time, then made a sound that Commander Taehyun translated. It says thank you. It says you will always be family. It says it hopes to see you again when it is grown. Jiwoo knelt down to be at eye level with the cub. Stay safe, little one. Grow strong. Make your father proud. The cub chirped happily, then returned to Kralvor's side. The war chief placed one hand on his child's head, a gesture of protection and love. He looked at the assembled humans one more time. Until we meet again, friends. The Carthax delegation boarded their shuttle. The humans watched as it departed, returning to the massive warship waiting in orbit. The warship itself remained for another hour, its presence a silent statement. The Starfang clan had marked this station and these humans as under their protection. Anyone who threatened them would face Carthax justice. Then the warship engaged its faster-than-light drives and disappeared, returning to Carthax territory with its most precious cargo safely recovered. Jiwoo stood at a viewing port, watching the stars where the ship had vanished. Captain Bora joined him.